Welcome to the 2020 Presidential Race Review. I'm your host, Jessica Kwong, and I'm broadcasting from home via Zoom due to the coronavirus pandemic. We are now less than 6 months away from the 2020 election, and it's come down to President Donald Trump and presumptive Democratic nominee Joe Biden. Today I have a historian and Columbia University lecturer with me, David Eisenbach. David, how are you doing? I know people have asked you this a million times, but how's your quarantine?
Everything's going well except my hair, which is why I'm wearing the Mets hat. So my apologies for that. I haven't had a haircut in months.
It's okay. My hair is not going that great either. I mean, not the best, not the ideal conditions right now, but thank you so much for being on the show earlier this year. It's been about 2.5 months since we talked, and at that time you told me that the election was going to be determined by the economy. So Trump has always talked about how the economy is his strong point, and now the economy is tanked due to COVID. So what do you think about this? What's the outlook for Trump?
Well, specifically, I was talking about the Dow. And remember, I said that if the Dow is above 20,000, I think Donald Trump's going to get elected. Below 20,000, I think he loses. And we saw how the Dow came down, but then it managed to be pushed up by the Federal Reserve, basically going on a spending spree, buying ETFs and propping up the stock market. Stock market was a big fat ugly bubble before that wasn't reflecting the real economy. And it's certainly the case right now that when we are at depression levels of unemployment, and yet the stock market seems to be rebounding. Where are we going to be in November is the question I left you months ago. And I still think it's unanswered. You know, is the stock market still up there with these outrageous levels of unemployment in a way that might protect Donald Trump come November?
Okay, so we still don't know is the short answer.
So basically we don't know, and we live under such strange times where you could have such a disconnect between the high-flying stock market, which is still incredibly high, artificially inflated, and rising unemployment. Where do those swing voters feel? How do they feel at this moment? We still don't know. There is quite a possibility that if the quarantine gets lifted, if America gets back to work, we could have a recovery, not to pre-coronavirus levels, but just enough to even make the unemployment not so bad come November.
Mm-hmm. And you're a historian, so I wanted to get your take and just give us a little bit of a history lesson here. So COVID-19 shutdown has been compared to the Great Depression, and America's already seen Great Depression levels of unemployment. President Herbert Hoover was criticized for not doing a good job combating that crisis, and he ended up losing the 1932 election to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. So that was by a wide margin. So do you think this presidential election is shaping up to be a referendum on Trump and how he's handling the pandemic? Could history be repeating itself?
All presidential re-elections are referendums on the sitting president. And so, yes, it will be. But where are we going to be in November? I could think of two scenarios, one in which we don't really have much of a second wave of the virus. America does start to reopen. The infection rates, the death toll, death rate goes down significantly. And Donald Trump is then seen as the hero who got us through to the other side of this thing. The other possibility is that we open up too soon. The death rate, the infection rate goes back up, and Donald Trump looks like he's responsible for people dying unnecessarily. We won't know until the fall, and so your guess is as good as mine.
Okay. And then on the flip side, President Barack Obama got into office in sort of the beginning or the midst of the Great Recession. So a lot of people credited him, and he got reelected, right, and to carrying the country out of the recession. Do you think that Trump has an opportunity to do that as well? And any comparisons or?
As I said last time, I thought the coronavirus could be the straw that broke the camel's back. It basically popped the big, fat, ugly bubble that was the economy, completely out of touch with the real economy. That existed before Corona. Now we've seen that that is totally true, that there is a complete disconnect between the real economy and the stock market, right? So, you know, will Americans say, you know what, it wasn't Trump's fault for the skyrocketing unemployment and the crash in the economy, and do they give him a pass that is quite plausible. But again, that's kind of time will tell.
Okay. And I want to switch gears to Biden. So since March, he's been sheltering in place at his home in Delaware, and he's turned his basement into a media center and doing things here and there. But Trump's started to go back on the road. He's speaking at events, and Biden's still stuck in his basement. So people think that some people think that Trump can self-destruct, but does Biden have to do something, or should he just sit back and wait?
Well, Biden's in a tough spot, right? Biden actually believes in science and listening to the infection scientists. And so, there he is, right? What do? Do you say, you know what, even though I'm an elder American and even though the scientists are telling everybody and the politicians are telling everybody, stay in place, shelter in place, especially people above the same age as me, I'm going to defy that and ignore that and go out and campaign? Well, Donald Trump can do that because he's not listening to the scientists. He doesn't want, he's totally dismissed them.
And
but
he's not wearing a mask, nothing. Yeah.
What's that? And to me, your average American looks at that and, oh man, he's an old man, Joe Biden, sheltering in place. That's not what I'm looking for in a president. That's not what your typical American looks for in a president. Donald Trump is embodying that go out and fight the good fight kind of attitude. And I think it's going to help.
The strength of America, the strength of the economy opening back up.
That sort of can-do attitude. I'm just going out there and defying death. It's almost like a Teddy Roosevelt light sort of situation. Joe Biden looks scared down there in his basement. And it just, I don't think it reads very well for sure.
Okay. And you say that obviously he's in a tough spot because he's older, and obviously you don't want to send the message that people can go out when the pandemic's still ongoing.
And exactly, especially when you are kind of bringing on the mantle of science-based reality, right? You're the guy who actually listens to the scientists, right? And so what are you going to do now? Pretend like you're not the guy who listens to the scientists? Plus, you've already committed to the basement strategy. So,
right.
So if that's the case, then still where is Biden? Why isn't he every day pounding Donald Trump with videos and Instagram?
I totally agree with that.
You know what I mean? If you're going to do the basement strategy, at least do it well.
Go all out, right?
Go all out. What do you have to lose? Because right now he's losing. Honestly, if you just look at
even though polls say otherwise.
What's that?
Even though the polls show that Biden's leading, you think he's losing?
I'll tell you what, a lot of people were wrong following and believing the polls in 2016. And the fact of the matter is you can't trust the polls. And if there's one lesson we learned the last time around, don't believe what the polls tell you.
Okay. Well, with Biden, he's, is there anything he could be doing with social media or virtual things, innovating in any sense? I mean, he's behind Trump in the sense that Trump has way more social media followers. So he's already behind in that game. Do you think there's anything that he could be doing to set himself apart, or you're just sort of limited by the technology in the situation?
Well, look, he's got to make news. And if you are a presidential challenger, you can make news just by issuing statements, criticizing the president, going after him. You're just mixing it up. Right? This sort of quiet campaign that Biden seems to be embracing, I think is just a bad mistake.
Is it too late for him, or he can turn it around any day?
Oh, no, it's not too late. In politics, November is a long time away.
It is.
A lot of things can happen, a lot of events. We don't know how this virus is going to play out. We don't know how the economy is going to play out. But I think he's got to start jumping into the game because, it's crunch time right now.
You mentioned that he could be putting out statements criticizing Trump. Is there anything specific that you would offer the Biden campaign? Anything else that he should be doing to try to get ahead of the game?
Well, I think that, he should be criticizing, which would also require a little criticism of his own party, these stimulus packages, which have ignored small business. We have this PPP, which actually has not really helped small business. In the meantime, these packages have given away billions to large corporations and big banks. Big banks can just get money without really having to even ask for it in some cases, whereas a small business owner has to fill out these difficult applications, and even then they get rejected. So I would pick up the mantle of the small business. We are losing hundreds of thousands of small businesses as a result of this crisis. Why isn't Donald Trump helping them out and all the people who are employed by small businesses? I would make that a centerpiece of my campaign. You know, you now can't just jump in and say we're going to offer payroll protection when the unemployment rate is about 20% right now. You're not going to help those people who are currently unemployed. So again, where's Biden on that? Why isn't he screaming about that? Why isn't he screaming about the fact that $1,200 is not enough? That doesn't cover the rent for many Americans. So on 1 month, and $1,200, it's an insult. Why isn't Biden screaming about that?
So if I'm Trump, I think that it's not a good strategy to say no to $2,000 checks per month. I mean, it seems like if you want to get reelected, you should try to appeal to a wide electorate and everyone.
Exactly, right? But actually, he can remain silent as long as Biden is silent. So that's the problem here. Because Biden has been so silent, right, that allows Trump to go along with Mitch McConnell, who has no interest in writing those checks. Mm-hmm. What's that?
Appease Republicans and his party.
Right, and sort of his kind of so-called conservative base, he doesn't have to stiff them because he's not being attacked from the left by Biden, and that's the kind of sad aspect of this Biden campaign.
Well, thank you, David. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll be back with more of the 2020 presidential race review.
Patriotism. It inspires passionate debate. It's worn like a badge of honor with good reason, because it means love and devotion for one's country. But what really makes up this country of ours? It's the people. To love America is to love all Americans. This year, patriotism shouldn't just be about pride of country. It should be about love. Love beyond age, sexuality, disability, race, religion, and other labels. Because love has no labels.
Can I tell you a cat joke? Just kidding. Why did the girl ask the mushroom to dance? Because he was a fun guy. What do you call a pig that knows karate? Pork chop. So how does a tissue dance? Put a little boogie on it.
Welcome back to the 2020 Presidential Race Review. I'm your host, Jessica Kwong, and I still have with me David Eisenbach. He's a historian and lecturer at Columbia University. Well, David, let's get a little bit more local here. We're in New York, and I want you to talk about the presidential primary. It almost didn't happen, but there was a court order saying that it is going to happen. So how does this affect the presidential election?
Well, it will allow candidates like Bernie Sanders and Andrew Yang, who, by the way, it was Andrew Yang's lawsuit that got that primary reinstated, to pick up delegates, which might give them some leverage come the nomination convention to push certain elements into the party platform and maybe on the vice presidential pick. The bigger impact will be on the down ballot races. And specifically, I'm talking about the congressional races. One particularly close one is a Bronx congressional race involving Eliot Engel, the long-term incumbent, been there for 31 years, and up-and-comer Jamal Bowman. And if I were to say, you know, who's the next AOC, I'd say it was Jamal.
I was about to ask about AOC.
What's that?
I was about to ask, bring an AOC comparison.
Yeah, he's running a hell of a campaign. And not only that, Eliot Engel has spent this corona quarantine at his house in Potomac, Maryland. Jamal Jamal has been in the district. He's been out and about. He's been delivering meals around the district. And I think that right now, people don't want to hear about another absentee congressperson. They want somebody sitting through this this terrible virus with them. And keep also in mind, it was Eliot Engel's district that has New Rochelle, where this virus began. It's part of the Bronx, part of the Westchester. It is a hot spot in a city of hot spots. So Jamal Bowman, that's the one I would say.
Okay. And you, I know that as New Yorkers, should we be happy that the primary is going to happen? I mean, the whole health risks thing, was that sort of a political thing? I mean, people can go out and mask and be prepared and vote, right?
Yes, but now with the absentee ballots, right? This will make it so that it won't be as threatening, right? So that was important. It's important that we keep this franchise. It's important that we maintain our say in the presidential elections, and maybe even more importantly in the congressional elections.
And going back to the 2020 presidential race and election, do you think that this virus is going to have an impact on voting itself? I mean, now we have absentee voting, right? But is there less of an interest among people to vote, or are their opinions more pretty much settled in one way or the other? Is there any impact that?
Potentially, yes. Potentially devastating. I mean, if we get this second wave that they're talking about, and just like with the Spanish flu, if the second wave is stronger, more deadly than the first wave, and that hits in October at the beginning of your usual flu season, then it's going to be a major factor. Let's just hope that's not the case. No one knows, even the scientists don't know whether that will happen, but let's hope it is.
Well, thinking back to the Spanish flu, I mean, it was a long time ago, but was there more or less turnout during a pandemic, or it didn't really have a factor?
By the time, so 1918 is when it starts. It comes back and hits, about 4 times through 1920. By the time the fourth wave hit in 1920, when there was a presidential election, that fourth wave was really, really weak. So we actually don't have anything in comparison historically. So
this is sort of a testing ground. It's the first time it's ever happened in this way.
In many ways, the testing ground, yes.
Okay. There was a CNN poll released this week that found that Biden was leading by 5 percentage points nationwide, and that he was trailing by 7 percentage points in crucial battleground states. Is that concerning to you? Is there any impact that you think the Tara Reade sexual assault allegations had? Is this a huge concern for Biden?
I think that in both cases, right, we just kind of think about where is Florida at. Florida wound up not being as hit as hard as the scientists were predicting.
And they're opening up again with Palm Beach.
What's that?
They're opening up again with Palm Beach and
Palm Beach. Yeah. So the Donald Trump's attitude of let's get back to work seems to be the policy of Florida, and it seems to be working with them. Now, again, are they going to get hit with some sort of second wave? Is that going to then boomerang on Trump? Time will tell. So again, that's just it's a factor, it's a variable that we don't know. As for the sexual harassment issue, sexual assault, let's get that straight, issue. The fact is, I wrote a book about the sex lives and sex scandals about the presidents. We've had throughout American history, going back to Grover Cleveland in the 19th century, a number of sex scandals that have played their way out in the public eye during a presidential contest, but they never actually changed the vote. In fact, the people guilty of the sex scandals, the men guilty of the sex scandals, Donald Trump included in 2016, wind up winning. So
Bill Clinton, right?
Bill Clinton, Donald Trump, Grover Cleveland, Woodrow Wilson. I mean, the list kind of goes on and on. Jack Kennedy, they were roasting on him. So anyway, the American public doesn't care. They care about, how is this presidential candidate going to affect my life, my ability to bring home the bacon. They don't really care about the sex scandal, not when it comes to who they choose in the voting.
And it's interesting you mentioned Florida, because that's where a lot of Trump supporters are, and Trump supporters want this country to reopen. So it's
and so that's again sort of where does that boomerang, does that jeopardize and cost more lives, the quick reopening, or does all the fears that we had about the second wave of this virus, do they just not materialize? And then Donald Trump is like, I told you so, everybody follow me. And,
right.
And if that's the case, Donald Trump wins.
And he's very good at that, because we saw him survive the Mueller investigation, saw him survive impeachment. And then now the question is he going to survive the virus, right?
Yes, that's right. That's right. And, Donald Trump is also an expert at having it both ways, playing both ways. And that, when you're a con man and a liar, that comes in very handy.
Mm-hmm. Should Democrats be worried that Biden could win the popular vote but lose the Electoral College like Hillary Clinton did in 2016? Do you see that manifesting itself again?
And Al Gore in 2000, yes.
Right.
Yes, this is definitely a threat. Joe Biden, and this would have been true for any candidate, is going to run up the numbers running against Donald Trump in California and New York. But that does not get you the presidency. So, it really will get back to, where does Ohio go? Where does Florida go? Where does Pennsylvania go?
David, you mentioned that you're disappointed, or that Biden's strategy in the basement is lackluster right now. Do you think that he is the candidate? Obviously, he's the presumptive Democratic nominee, but is there someone else you think that could still come out of nowhere? We have Justin Amash, third party, or is this sort of what we have and it's what we're stuck with?
Well, a third party candidate will really hurt Joe Biden.
Right.
And that's, people have been sort of suggesting Jesse Ventura jumping in, maybe getting the support of the Green Party. That would be a problem for Biden. Now, in terms of, Biden maybe walking away, stepping down from the Democratic nomination, and the delegates choosing Andrew Cuomo, begging Andrew Cuomo to jump in here. I know Cuomo has said he's got no intention for that to happen, but certainly he would be a much more formidable candidate. Cuomo, Trump slugfest, a knife fight with these two guys from Queens. Could it get better?
Interesting. Yeah.
It couldn't get any better.
Right. It would actually be an exciting race. And it's funny because the virus set it up already, right? You see.
Well, and there's no one would have thought about Andrew Cuomo.
Right, coming out of left field.
But now he's, America's sweetheart. He's become the sex symbol.
Trump, even if he's not running.
So look, dare to dream. I doubt it. I know that Cuomo is very serious about managing this crisis and making sure New York State gets through it. And he's really coming to his own in this incredible test of leadership. So, Cuomo doesn't have any interest in jumping in here and is biding his time, but, he's definitely thinking about 2024.
Okay. And you mentioned Cuomo. I mean, would you personally be happy if that happened? It sounded like you are, but I'm not sure.
Like I said, for entertainment value, I definitely would enjoy that matchup, Trump versus Cuomo. Mm-hmm. I don't think it's very likely. I think that Andrew Cuomo kind of sees the ability, unless Biden literally would have to kind of walk away and kind of pass the baton. Even then, I think Cuomo would have second thoughts about taking it up. But I do think that he would make a much better candidate than Joe Biden in the basement. Everywhere.
Right. We talked a lot about the Biden campaign. How about the Trump campaign? How do you think they're faring these days? Are they doing what they should, or they can't do anything?
It's the advantage of a sitting president is that you just have to keep on being president. You just have to go out and keep on doing your job, and part of your job is confidence, making people feel confident about the economy, where it's headed, and so he can just keep on playing that role. That puts then the challenger, right, in the position of having to tear down the economy and tear down people's confidence that things are going to get better. That's another tough position for Joe Biden to be in. So now that Donald Trump seems to sort of be able to kind of now run around the country outside of the House, that also favors Donald Trump. So I don't think Donald Trump's doing anything wrong, but the Biden people should be panicking right now.
Okay, that's a really interesting take, because like you said, you can't trust the polls, especially after the last election. So it's good to know these things. I think a lot of people just sit back and relax and think, oh, Trump is making a fool out of himself and he's not going to get reelected, but you never know. So
you never know, and what you have to now kind of put yourself in the position of those voters who voted for Trump, okay, the ones we have to win back. In order for them to switch to Biden right now, right, and these are voters who voted for Barack Obama twice and then voted for Trump once, they would have to get it in their minds that they were wrong the first time. That requires a lot for people to switch their votes like that. But that's why you got to be very aggressive. And any Democrat who's confident is looking at these polls and saying, "Oh, Biden is going to win," needs to remember what happened the last time.
Totally agree with that. Any last thoughts before we wrap up today, David?
Well, we all have our hopes about where this thing is headed. I think that America's got no choice but to get back to work. And that is something that makes it very, very difficult for Biden to continue in the basement. I think Americans are looking for somebody who is going to kind of give them the confidence to embrace life, go out, get back to work. And that's where Donald Trump's got the advantage. So good luck to the Biden people trying to figure out a strategy. I don't envy them. I've been on presidential campaigns. I know they're tough. But you guys got to do something soon. That's my advice.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the 2020 Presidential Race Review. We'll be back next time, and in the meantime, stay safe and healthy at home.